Live. Over to you.
Hello, everybody. Big welcome and thank you for joining us this very, very special event here today. So, my name is Charles Appleby, representing Fly Greener, and we've got
Hello,
my
everybody.
colleague Muskan Banatwala, who's in Belém in COP30 in the Blue Zone today. Gary, as always, is doing the tech for us. Thanks ever so much, Gary. And Shayla Mitchell, part of the IHV team, head of IHV UK,
A
is here
small
as well.
report from me
So,
from the
very, very
Blue
important day
Zone
here
here
today.
at.
This is the second week of the negotiations in Belém. So, first of all, why are we here? Why are our team here? Why are we doing this? What's it really all about? And absolutely, it's because all of us here share our concerns about the impact of global warming and the catastrophe that that would be for humanity and all life on Earth if that gets out of control and that gets to the 2.6 degrees that's being talked about. So for me, my particular concerns, I'm very much concerned about what are called global tipping points. I'm going to talk more later about this rather than now, but the one of the world experts on this is Professor Tim Lenton from Exeter University in the UK, and he's been at COP30 and talked a bit, and also he's produced an amazing report. So you can look up his reports, Global Tipping Points, online, get his report, take a look and learn all about it. But essentially, it's about coral reefs, which will most likely will all be lost. It's about Antarctic ice melting, which could cause catastrophic sea level rise for certain people. And for me, particularly worrying is Arctic methane release. Okay, so before we just go to COP30 in Muscat, Shailen, would you like to say a few words, introduce yourself and what you feel about things?
Yes, thank you, Charles. Um, my name is Shailin Mittal, and I'm on the board of International Association for Human Values. I'm also in the business of giving consultation to global investors for real estate in Dubai, and that's my main business. But over here, we have been working with the young people with all sorts of communities and institutions to strengthen them. And one of the areas that the organization has been championing since last 9 or 10 years is climate change. The UN conference of COP30 is at the highest level, and every year there is so much discussion, trepidation, doubts. But I am a firm believer that if there is a forum for discussion, at least the presence of the forum, the existence of that platform, it progresses things. The lack of it would be even more disastrous. And we are really proud that Muskan from our organization here, she's championing it. She's made her way all the way. And it was Sienna last week who was presenting to us from the COP30. It's Muskan now. She has been helping with fundraising, outreaching to companies, and also helping with disaster relief campaigns, as well as learned a lot of skills on the way. So I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to hearing from her. Muskan, uh, take it away. This is
Thank
yours.
you, Simon.
And tell us especially the things that we don't get to know from media, because media has its own propaganda. But what is your first-hand stories that you'd like to share with us and with the audience?
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for that incredible introduction. The second week in Belém has been objectively a lot more fast-paced, a lot more impactful. There is a growing need for implementation and implementation that must happen now. We no longer have the privilege of 5 and 10 year plans. We no longer have the privilege of foreseeable futures because all the change needs to happen now. And that is being very, very much reflected in everything that has been going on today. Um, the media has been very well in, I'd say, recording what is happening on a superficial level, but that is the best that we can expect from the media. Over here, there have been conversations and growing conversations on youth mental health and youth involvement um, in action and in implementation and in the decision making. There has been, I think, in the last week there was quite a lot of emphasis on climate financing, and this week it's come to light that climate financing will not be possible if it isn't in line with adaptation. We must involve indigenous people and people that actually protect the environment and respect the environment in negotiations, in action. And I have here today with me Viral Rodriguez, and he will tell us more about what the UK has been doing and what the Belaine Action Plan is for just transitions and how we have been reconciling all of these different aspects of mental health, climate change, adaptation, financing, transition, local governance, local ownership, and how it has all come together in this one action plan from the civil society that should and does deserve a lot more attention. Over to you.
Hi everyone, and thank you for holding it. Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you, Muskan. I was just going to speak about everything that Muskan just mentioned. I'll probably start with some of the negatives, then I'll speak about the positives, and then I've got a few things to say about BAM as well, the BAM action mechanism. So starting with the positives, I think COP has been great so far in bringing all of these movements from across Brazil. It's united them and made them speak as one voice, which is really good. So we've got movements from all across. Like we've got movements from South Brazil, North Brazil, West of Brazil. They've all kind of like come together, which is nice to see. And we've also got them working with international movements as well. On Saturday, just this Saturday that went past, about 50,000 people marched in the streets in Belém under really, really hot conditions. And that was really nice to see. It was challenging. It was nice to see all of these people coming together. And that's something that gives me hope. People on the outside, just general everyday people coming together. We know that COP is slow, but it's still one of the best tools that we have in place to bring about change. It's like, we need COP, but we also kind of need something else that really brings a bit of like that is slightly sobering and that kind of shakes humanity slightly to make us think, right, this is a big issue that's coming for us. We need to really act fast. Belém is right on the equator, and I've been kind of slightly. I was thinking, are we in the right place, or or in the wrong place? Because Belém has not had the right infrastructure, but it is right on the equator. So this is the place which will be impacted by the climate crisis. And we felt the heat right inside this specific place as well, inside COP30's location. Everyone's been sweating, especially when the sun is out and when it's not raining outside. It's been really hot inside over here. The AC has been struggling because it's not an airtight location either. But it's a good location because we're right on the front line of the climate crisis. And I was speaking to someone from Para government, which is the state that COP30 is being held in. And he was saying it's been really good to keep COP30 over here because it's kind of like a wake-up call to Brazil, especially because all of the negotiators from Brazil are from the south of Brazil, which is slightly cooler. It has cooler weather. And so they've never come to the north. Most of them have never come to the north, have never felt the impacts of the climate crisis. So it's been good to get them right into the Amazon and make them see firsthand what people are facing over here. And then, I think it's been good also for people in the north of Brazil. Apparently, this guy who works for the government has said that we've had a record-breaking number of people attending the Green Zone over here that COP has ever had. And I felt that as well, because when I was in the Green Zone last week, it was crowded. They had to close the gates last week to stop people from coming in. It was round, and it's nice to see local people having an interest. And I think that comes down to how much of an impact the climate crisis is having on the local people over here. They've seen the Amazon burn, they've felt the smoke, they're feeling the heat of it as well. They've seen flooding. Another thing that he mentioned was that the people over here have felt how the climate has changed, at least in the last 10 years. They've seen it getting hotter. So, they know firsthand. So I think all of that is driving loads of people to be interested in climate change and be open to change. Some of the negatives to talk about, maybe I should have started with this, is the highway that was built to connect Belém. More than 100,000 trees were cut down. I think it could have been done differently. I did speak about the infrastructure. We're currently in a temporary infrastructure. It's not a building, and that's caused loads of issues. Like, some of the side buildings have been flooded over here, which may be like a wake-up call to negotiators over here. But it's also meant that this structure is not airtight, which has caused air conditioning problems and things like that. It's pretty hot inside over here. There's been a lot of indigenous washing that's been happening as well. I feel like indigenous people have been the face of this COP, but they haven't been given a voice. They've just been mainly kind of like, in the Green Zone or the People's Summit, which was held outside of the conference. And I think there could have been better representation of indigenous people over here, given that they were the face of it. This COP has had the most indigenous representation. That's good. I think we should give them more of a voice. Just lastly, I wanted to speak about the Belém Action Mechanism. So, and just to flag as well, the UK currently is blocking the biggest climate justice outcome that's on the table at COP30. It's called Belém Action Mechanism, as I've said, and if it fails, millions of workers on the front line will lose, and communities will lose. So BAM is currently the strongest proposal the civil society has brought into the UN climate talks this year in years, and it creates like a global mechanism for a just transition, so ensuring workers, indigenous people, communities, and low-income countries aren't left behind as the world moves off fossil fuels. And right now, around 80% of the world's population, the G77 plus China, plus countries like the Philippines who are on the front lines, are strongly supporting BAM. Just to mention, Philippines just experienced 2 typhoons recently, so they're like feeling the brunt of the climate crisis. Indigenous groups, youth movements, trade unions, women's groups, and climate justice coalitions are all backing it too. But here's who's blocking it: the UK, Japan. Those 2 countries were awarded the fossil of the day this week for refusing to support BAM. The EU is also not supporting it at the minute. However, some EU countries like Germany, France, and Spain are supporting it. So, they seem to be on the fence, and maybe they might change in a few days. But yeah, let's see what happens. And the UK is claiming that it will weaken the 1.5 degree or it will, create new financial obligations and stuff, but it won't. I think that's just misinformation.
Muskan, you're obviously very passionate about everything you're talking about. Can you give us an insight into what made you so passionate about this? Just so we want to hear about the guy that is there and is so passionate, because I'm sure you could talk forever, but it's a personal story for you, I feel. Could you share that?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been a climate activist since 2019. My background is my educational background is mechanical engineering, and then I did renewable energy for my master's. Trying to come up with like solutions. But then when I was doing my master's, I realized that we already have the solutions to stop the climate crisis. We already have the technology. Renewable energy technology has been here since 70s, 80s. They're already quite mature by now, and it's already there to replace fossil fuels entirely. But what we lacked was the political will. What we lacked was awareness from people. And that's when I got into climate activism. That's when I got into advocacy stuff. I started off with Greenpeace, and then I saw the Amazon on fire in 2019. Then I saw the Australian bushfires. And that really drove my climate anxiety through the roof. And that's when I even quit my graduate job at the time, thinking, what's the use of having a career if I wouldn't have a future in like 20, 30 years from now. I quit my job and I joined Extinction Rebellion, and I've been in and out of activism, doing it full time, in and out of jobs as well to support myself financially. But yeah, so I've been an activist, climate activist from 2019, and since then I've kind of like dedicated my life to bringing about change in this world and giving humanity a fighting chance. Yeah,
Amazing.
so that's my story. Yeah, thank you for listening to me. I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Scans.
Okay. Veril, that was, we seem to have lost you just for the moment, but Veril, that was absolutely amazing. I was fascinated by the story. And Gary, great question there, asking him about his personal motivation. I mean, I don't think we hear of being a member of Extinction Rebellion, because for me it's a step beyond where I want to take it. But certainly, I think all of us here share the sentiment of the need, essential need for action, which Veril has expressed perfectly well. And it would be really great if he can find a way through what's happening here at COP to do more with us for the future. Um, as we've lost Muskan for a minute, let me just say a little, if I may, about Al Gore. Maybe people here saw a bit of Al Gore's interview. It's a very, very interesting, good interview on Bloomberg. But Muskan, I'm just talking to you for a minute about Al Gore and his Bloomberg interview. If after I've done that, if you can come back in and pick up your comments on Burrell and bring Beryl back in again. You're at 90 degrees at the moment, by the way. Okay. Okay. So as the way Al Gore put it last week, I thought this was great. What he said is that 10 years ago in Paris, 195 nations signed the Paris Agreement. So only one nation has withdrawn out of 195. And obviously, that is the USA, driven by Trump's personal animosity to climate change. And so there's 194 countries left in this, and only one country opposing it. And so maybe this is a little bit of a jokey comment, but I liked it. So Al Gore said he feels that we've passed peak Trump. He feels that Trump on now will be on the way downhill, and we're into a situation where he will not be around in due course. But I have to say that he is causing a lot of damage to climate change. The scientists continue to assert that climate change is real, is being caused by emissions, and fossil fuels need to be dealt with. And of course, that's a major part of the discussion here. But the other thing that Al Gore had to say is that he feels that Donald Trump is really a bit like the historical figure of King Canute, trying to stop the tide. So famously, he stood on the beach many hundreds of years ago. He stood on the beach, probably somewhere in England, saying that, look, I can stop the tide because I'm a king, I'm so powerful. And what Al Gore is saying is that absolutely this does not work. So, for example, last year in the US, a lot of new electrical generation was installed, and 97% of it was renewable, even though Trump is in charge. So enough of Al Gore. Muskan, back to you, please. Your comments, please, on what the amazing Vera has been saying, and anything else you'd like to ask him. Thank you. Over to you.
So Beryl had to run off, but I think he's raised some incredible points about the reality of what is happening in Berlin. I do think that this is nevertheless a space that has brought in a lot of dialogue, a lot of people, and a lot of institutions that otherwise would not have had a chance to even be heard, in the very least. Something that I really wanted to talk about today, and I think has been very well captured by COP, is the real need for local knowledge, for traditional knowledge, in essentially enhancing the policies that we have now. Because yes, climate change can be tackled through technical, market-based approaches and financial means, but I think it is very important to talk about indigenous knowledge and the knowledge that people have on how they interact with the environment. And this comes from a very spiritual place. This comes from the heart of people and the consciousness of the people that have lived in the Amazon, that have lived in the Pacific Islands, and that have lived in the heart of nature, and they respect nature. I think one of the things that I have learned from here is to start respecting nature more than anything. And once we foster.
This is very interesting, also in line with our friend Rob's message that the hydrosphere of the Amazon is so important to hold, and to protect and to foster. And that's the one that will find where we will find the best solutions. So that is definitely the local knowledge of, that part of Latin America, and it makes sense. Yeah, good
And this
observation.
has transcended outside of Latin America. Yes, we're in Belém and we're in the heart of the Amazon, but you see it with speakers from the Pacific Islands. You see this with the speakers from the African Union, from African countries, because Africa is one of the most affected regions from climate change. And it has reached the point where climate change has entrenched in nearly every other wake of life, be it conflict, be it social cohesion, be it jobs, be it food security, anything that I can think of, mental health, anxieties, all of these have been entrenched by climate change. And I think this forum this year, more than ever before, has incredibly highlighted that and has provided everybody, not just in Berlin, but even outside, the realization of just what is at stake.
So Muskan, this is a really interesting point you've made. I'd like you to think about giving us an example where the indigenous knowledge is making a real difference. I mean, we live in a world now where the perception is everything's about technology. It's about new technology, new software. It's about AI. These are the things in the West that are making a difference and are in the discussions daily. So can you just give an example that would help people who are in this context to let them know really what indigenous knowledge can achieve?
So currently the Climate Adaptation Fund, they have been doing some incredible work in the Pacific Islands with including indigenous knowledge systems and experience-based knowledge in their official frameworks for climate adaptation. I was at a talk yesterday and where we had some very engaging discussions actually on how the indigenous people in the Pacific Islands can forecast rain. People in Africa, in rural parts and traditional systems, they forecast rains for the next year to come by simply seeing the temperature of the wind, the flow of ants, the speed of the wind, the direction, the way the clouds fall. These are all things that science and Western science often forgets to include. We see everything from a very technical point of view, but we forget that it's the lived experiences that really make a difference and really matter when it comes to something like climate change that we are experiencing. So how do you tackle experience without including experience in your referendums?
Amazing.
Okay, Muskan, I'd like to give my own example, which is Fly Greener. So now with Fly Greener, during 2025, we switched to planting fruit trees. So the fruit trees are planted by local people in Madagascar. And those people they either have the knowledge or they're taught the knowledge of how to plant and look after the fruit trees. And with the business model of people planting the trees and looking after them, it actually provides a 30 times impact for the donation. So if you make a donation of £100 to Fly Greener over the 30-year contract, that will actually deliver £3,000 worth of fruit to the local people, and it's using their knowledge, their skills, their knowledge to grow the fruit, to get the fruit to market, all of that, which is making the difference. So as I say, I feel for me that is a great example. And so now back over to you, Muskan, as to, well, what would you like to tell us about next?
Yesterday, actually, I was at a movie screening called We Are Guardians. It focused on the life of indigenous people in the Amazon, um, and how in the last years from the Bolsonaro government, they experienced massive logging of illegal logging of the Amazon, which inevitably does get shipped off to countries in a very legal fashion, because there is always a way to enable such processes. And this was the life of Puitembe. She is the first indigenous woman to represent on a ministerial level in the Secretariat of Para under the Lula governance. And this was her story that was spotlight on, along with the lives of so many others. And it really comes to show that these are the people that protect the Amazon. And yes, we talk about protecting the climate, we talk about protecting the environment, but what about these people? We need to protect these people. We need to have provisions in place to protect these people. And in fact, just yesterday, Brazil has pledged 10 indigenous land areas that will be protected under the law. Yes, enforcement is one thing, but now there's legal protection for 10 more 10 more spaces of indigenous land in the Amazon. And this definitely lends to the 20% reduction in deforestation that is one of the action points for Brazil this year.
That's good. Muskan, are you able to show us some live action by walking around and showing what's on the exhibit, what pavilions, what countries are saying what? I also saw you walk past Children and Youth Pavilion. What is
Yes.
their message?
Let me walk back there. Right now, we are at the African Pavilion.
Okay.
And Africa as a region is one of the most affected regions from climate change. I'm just going to stop here for a second. And it has come to light that, yes, these are the people that are most affected, but they are not the victims. They are the ones with the solutions. And these are the solutions that we must hear and we must listen to and take into account.
Africa.
Yesterday at the Africa Union in the African Pavilion, I'm just going to stand by this QR code very quickly. And if anybody can scan it, you will get an idea of what the agenda is for the African Union.
That is amazing to do that over a webinar. You're giving us access to what's there on the pavilion.
Because that is the point. There are so many people today that are not here, that should have been in the blue zone and haven't received the badge. From what I know, 1 in 25 people in the blue zone today are fossil fuel lobbyists in a time where we are fighting for just transitions and a phasing out of fossil fuels for sustainability. And this is something that has been bothering me quite a lot while I have been here. Because how do you fight against fossil fuels and how do you fight against all of this when the system itself is enabling these actors to actively come in and stop the change that we are so much struggling to do? This is the Children and Youth Pavilion at the moment. And let me go inside and see if we can get an idea of what is going on. At the moment, there isn't an event here, but I was at the Digital Innovations Pavilion earlier, and that was a panel being held by Rotary on just transitions in a digital age. Currently, there is a meeting on a new opportunity, so launching the Rotary Club in climate action. The Rotary has been an incredible part of and just in terms of reach, and they are a strategic partner of IHB UK, and it is an honor to be working with them and talking with them and seeing just how much they can help us scale in what we are doing and in what they are doing, because they have been putting up some incredible work on shared values, on on mental health, on inner peace. I heard this from someone and it really resonates with me, that if you want to end violence on the outside, you must first end it on the inside. And is that not what IHB is all about?
Absolutely.
We serve to end our violence on the inside so that we can make better futures.
Amazing. Okay, so Muskan, are you going to show us another pavilion now, or is this a good moment to ask you a couple of tricky questions?
Let me walk around, and how about you ask me some questions, and I'll get to them while I make my way.
Okay, so there are some questions that are part of the formal agenda, came up at the beginning of COP. So one of these is that you've mentioned, it's about Brazil protecting the rainforest. You've mentioned already the taking these 10 indigenous communities, giving them legal status, which should help. But this is a huge task with the stopping deforestation. Something like 20% of the Amazon has been destroyed over a number of years, particularly in the last few years, particularly under Bolsonaro. I mean, it's been stopped to an extent under Lula. But do you really feel from what people are saying, do you feel that it is going to be possible to protect the Amazon significantly, or is it going to be, words and not actually action?
My short answer would be yes. However, it is still within a very fragile window. So what's happening now is that at COP30, Brazil has very strongly pushed for the Tropical Forest Forever facility, the TFFF, and that is a forest finance mechanism that rewards countries for preserving their forests. The TFFF is very ambitious. It hopes to achieve $25 billion from governments, from philanthropists, and an additional $100 billion from private markets. I think from what I know, 20% of TFFF funds are they're embarked in states for indigenous people. And Brazil has been leading this dialogue on forest protection, including the carbon markets mechanism. So civil society groups have been involved, and they've submitted some really strong recommendations calling for some large-scale finance and environmental enhancement enforcements that would reduce violence and also benefit co-sharing of spaces.
So
Now
Muskan, this is really amazing. In your next few hours or a day or two there, if you're able to figure out how the finance pathways for this kind of funding are structured, who are the parties who are involved,
yes,
for accessing this kind of funding, that will be amazing. And it's not just for within Brazil. I'm talking about other countries, other African nations, even for example Latin American countries like Ecuador and Colombia and all of them.
So I'm so glad that you raised that, Kevin, because at the moment there are very clear risks and challenges to this. Securing the full 125 billion is a very uncertain commitment. It depends a lot on long-term market sustainability and governance of these countries involved. And there is a threat to ensuring equitable access to the local capacities. At the moment, local capacities are being challenged. We have come to the realization that local capacity building is first and foremost for climate financing to be successful. And the bottom line is that Brazil can act, and COP30 provides the real tools for this action. But the success hinges on the rapid implementation and the governance of all the actors involved.
Yeah, I understand. It's the whole movement starts with the policy, and then the rest follows. It may or may not happen. There will be challenges. It can take a long time. All of that, yeah. But
okay.
It is there. It's being talked about. Even if they achieve 30 or 40% of it, that's not bad.
I think for me, that's a very good insight that you brought to this. I mean, You know, these COPs, we've been having these COPs for 10 years since the Paris Agreement. And you know, you've talked about this insight here that you're saying local, I'm hearing you say that local capacity building is challenged and that success hinges on all the actors, states and individuals pointing in the same direction. So it's a bit worrying. It's taken 10 years to get to this point. But on the other hand, it's good that we are now seem to be talking about the right thing. Would you like to show us now another country stand, or would you like to uh, come to a standstill yourself a bit and take another question? What would you like to do, Muskan?
So right now I am outside the Brazil pavilion, and as you
Wow.
can see, it
Okay.
is a very active and a very lively pavilion. There are a bunch of interviews happening, a lot of action, a lot of people involved, and I think this is this must be spotlit because they're doing some incredible work, and it is lively, it is filled, and there's so much happening. I would just like to stop here for a second for everyone to just take
Great.
in
If you can
everything that's going on here.
just put the camera still for the moment and let people walk about in front of you, because you've got an amazing guy here with the full headdress we can see.
It will also be cool if you walk through the pavilion with the camera flipped like this and pause where you see some text or some things or some messaging. So we get a real life experience of walking through it.
Shannon, I believe you speak Portuguese,
I
so you
do.
will be helping us here in the translation
I
because
will
the
do my
Brazil
best.
pavilion is
I will do my best.
dominantly in Portuguese. Let's see, I'm going to try and zoom in on the action agenda. Just trying to see if I can get an in here.
So we look at it through your eyes, the whole pavilion.
That is the pavilion from the inside.
There's a space for the panel talks.
Yes.
And we don't mind the chaos and the noise if you walk through it or walk around it.
I am currently in the heart of it. And it is so humbling more than anything to see all of this happening in one space. And for me, this has been such an incredible opportunity. I am reaching the Civil Society Climate Justice Hub as we speak. And they have some very strong opinions on ecocide across borders and engaging in fossil fuels. I hope this is visible.
Yeah, ecocide has no borders. They kill the land to kill people. Interesting. Strong messaging.
This is one of their posters. There's this strong action against energy embargoes and fuels. Something that I found very interesting recently was the shift to grant-based funding for climate action for smaller countries. Because as we've seen with developmental projects, oftentimes smaller countries get indebted to developmental loans, to climate action loans, that they inevitably cannot pay back. And this only exacerbates their resources and the amount of things that they can do with the money that they get. And I think now the push towards grant-based loans has also been something that I found very interesting happening here. I'm going to pause for a second and maybe we can head to the next question.
Okay, thank you. So another really big subject here, which has been a lot of discussion in the press, is there has been what seems to be an unstoppable increase of CO2 emissions. There was great hope that that could be halted. Instead, year on year, we get more CO2 emissions. And the International Energy Agency has been saying that they now expect, because of the pressure from the fossil fuel industry, they expect emissions actually to continue to rise for the next 20 years instead of having peak oil around now, around 2025. So what do you see, Muskan, from the discussions you're having there? What do you see? What are people expecting? What is the reality about the possibility of halting this increase in emissions in the short term?
So I definitely do see that there is a momentum for change, and the momentum has been picking up. However, the success, I don't know how much it would be guaranteed. What's happening now is that nearly 80 countries are calling for a fossil fuel phase-out roadmap, and fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty initiatives have been advocating for the end of the new fossil fuel licensing. The EU has been pushing for tripling renewable and doubling efficiency by 2030. The UNDP frames top 30 around energy transitions, finance, and social justice. However, right now, the negotiations are still ongoing. Details are still very unclear. And I think we would have a better idea towards the end of the week.
Okay, thank you. That's very, very helpful. Very helpful.
Muskan, any updates from there on NDCs, the global stock take?
Negotiations are still continuing on the NDCs, but from what I've been seeing, is there are a lot of smaller countries that had very well consolidated NDCs and very, very elaborate NDCs that have been including gender sensitivity, climate sensitivity, conflict sensitivity. For example, I was at the Sierra Leone pavilion the other day, and within their NDC plans, I saw that there is a very, very strong push for youth involvement in climate action and youth involvement in decision making. This is something, to me, as a fellow youth, I have not seen such a push ever before. And I think the NDC turn has been going in a better place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Would you like to take the third of these questions, Muskan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So again, something that's been really important on the agenda was the possibility of mobilizing 1.3 trillion annually by 2035 for climate action. So where are we from what you hear, what people are saying? Where are we about the possibility of getting some of that money for climate action?
So Brazil has recently launched the COP30 Circular Finance Ministers from the Back to Belém roadmap. And this prioritizes an increase in concessional finance and attract more private investments. The TFFF that I previously mentioned has been tied to a wider climate finance structure. And the UNDP, like I said, has been promoting the Belém Action Mechanism for just transition. CIROS and ICRAF are calling for equitable and more transparent financial flows. However, at the moment, the ground reality is that this still sounds very, very ambitious, and it requires a much clearer systemic reform. The trust and accessibility remains critical for developing countries, and private capital, of course, will always depend on risk management. And that being said, governance must ensure more grassroots outreach. Like I mentioned, capacity building. If there is no capacity, these finances would not lend to anything truthful.
Okay, thank you.
Just an observation. This is easily the busiest of all of them, the Brazil one, yeah? Look at how busy this is. Wow.
Let me get back there and give just a view of how busy it can get.
And what's the energy there? Is the energy, how's it feel? Are people upbeat? Are people happy, sad? Are they tired? Because I see people exhausted around you as well.
I think a lot of people are tired. A lot of people are exhausted. Not more than anything, but the climate and it has been really, really warm here. And negotiations have been going on overnight until midnight. People have been, I don't think this hangar has been empty for the last 2 weeks.
I know Martin
And
had a
yes,
question. Martin, are you ready,
Yeah.
sir, to unmic yourself?
Well, I actually haven't got so much of a question now, but I just want to make a comment about the action mechanism. Just be interesting for you to know, perhaps, that I've had two emails today, one from Friends of the Earth and one from the Climate Justice Coalition, asking us to sign petitions for Ed Miliband to join in that. So the pressure's come very much from there. I just wanted to say that the new CEO of Friends of the Earth is in Belém at the moment, and if you see him, just say hello for me. But he's reporting back to us. Well, he actually isn't reporting back live like you are. So we've got one up on him. They're going to be reporting back next week after it's all over. But that'll be interesting. I think that's really. I don't really have a question more than that. I want to make that comment to say that there are these links between what's going on there and
Thank
what
you.
we're sort of hearing about now.
So, Martin, we've been invited to a session on Sunday from Healing Our Earth. So, Anukul, you're from Healing Our Earth. Would you like to ask a question and take advantage of our amazing live coverage here from Muscan?
Oh, yes, I'm really amazed to hear so much from Muskan about all the things that are going on. She's very well informed what all is going on. I am rather, what do you call, very keen to understand what the economic policies are which actually bring a change in the way we look at Mother Earth. One is that we tend to use economics to use the labor, at the same time the land, for economic benefits. And the industries of various sorts and various sizes use this very land and its producers for very peculiar economic benefits, which does not necessarily go back to the people who actually work on the fields. We do not have the capacity to give back to Mother Earth as well, just as much as we take from there. I think that's one of the things that I want to be highlighting it. In 2027, we intend actually to have a session wherein we try to integrate all aspects of our economics, our healing aspects, our healthcare, management of soil, water resources, land resources, and various other issues that actually keep us all integrated so that we can really help each other. So I've been looking at the various economic models when it comes to taking care of the earth. And by and large, the concept of owning a land and not necessarily giving it for the farmers is somewhere that has gone against the farmers who actually are being very often exploited in various ways. So I think there is something that looks for some changes in our policies, but I'm not exactly sure at what level the healing are the economic policies are actually working against us. Because no matter what it is, I have not seen a major change in the reduction in the pollution levels, the carbon, what do you call, emission. There's not been major change because I've only seen it getting worse. But I'm rather happy to see that people are actually taking proactive action, trying to improve the situation.
And you call such a deep question here. I want to take this one myself, and before we bring in Muskan on this one, this is
Yes.
so deep. I mean, Rob Delart, whose video we're going to see at the end now, we're going to see this at 6:30, but he's more of an expert on this. I was talking to him about just within Brazil, he told me that there are 12 different types of land. Obviously, you've got land owned by individuals, you've got land owned by community, you've got many different sorts of land which is owned by the indigenous people in different ways. And then, of course, you've got a situation where, in many cases, indigenous people lose out because of the structure of the way that the carbon credits are taken. So that, for example, even if the land is used to grow the trees and all this, then the overall contract can very much reduce the money that's given to the local people. So Rob's got a scheme which is trying to address that. Certainly the scheme we're running, Fly Greener, in specifically in Madagascar, that is enabling a huge transfer of money to the local community. So that's very, very helpful. But of course, the local community is very much at risk in all of these countries. In all of these countries, we have a situation where big business comes in and says, right, we want to extract oil. We want to extract oil from the forests in Brazil, from India, from any of these countries. And they come in. And if they do that, then of course they take a huge amount of economic value out of the ground from the oil. They don't necessarily put the land back in the usable state, and it probably takes so long that people have been driven out of the land, out of their own land, well before actually there is any restitution of the land. So there's a huge stripping of assets here. What I see myself, I see huge potential for nature-based solutions. I mean, the experts are saying that there's a possibility of trees removing 30% of the global CO2 emissions. Obviously, the trees need time to grow. They need to be planted. There's not actually a shortage of land. There is a risk of people cutting down the trees, which needs to be addressed. So it is possible for trees to do that. And of course, trees are basically, they should be very, very easy to grow as long as there is enough water and they're looked after. And of course, water now across the world is a challenge. So one of the big challenges is water. Again, our friend Rob Delart is the expert on that. But Muskan, you're there. This is an amazing question from Anu Kullen. I'd love to join this discussion with you again on this. But Muskan, what's your take on what on Anukul's question? Thank you.
To start, I would like to say that, Charles, I'm glad that you brought in nature-based solutions, because nature-based solutions are one way that reconcile economic policy and local level capacity, local ownership, and actually lead to the people being affected. Economic policies often forget about the humanity of and the reality of the ground. They're often technical, they're often technocratic, and yes, they create great frameworks for governance, but the reality of it is sparse. Something that I noticed between is a very interesting point of contention between poor farmers and indigenous people, because you cannot ask farmers to not use indigenous land for irrigation if you don't provide them with an alternative. Because at the end of the day, these are poor people who just, in the large scheme of things, are trying to just have a livelihood, to feed their families, and to not go hungry from one day to another. So I think more recently there has been a shift in policy where nature-based solutions have provided means for alternative livelihoods, and this is something that wasn't very well planned out in the initial financial outtake on climate change.
Okay, let's also, as well as nature-based solutions, let's just talk a little bit about agroforestry, which is the fruit trees, and that's what we're now doing in Madagascar. We've spent the last 6 years planting trees. A lot of them are mangrove trees on swampland, protecting the coast, and of course mangroves grow in salt water, which is very, very useful. But what I'm seeing myself is that this move towards agroforestry with fruit trees, the fruit trees are producing so much economic value. This is what's achieving the 30x multiplier that we're getting with the value of the trees. And of course, with a fruit tree, a difference is that it belongs to someone. Someone feels the ownership of it. They're going to look after it, because that tree, some of these trees can produce fruit for actually much longer than 30 years. Others need to be replaced within the 30-year contract. So the economic value of fruit is very, very high, and that's making a huge difference. So if we can plant fruit trees, whether they're conventional, lemons, oranges, these sorts of types of fruit trees, or whether they're fruit trees from some of the more exotic fruits, that come from places like Brazil and some of these other countries. They're all making a huge difference. As I say, because someone is interested in those trees, they're looking after them, and they certainly don't want them cut down because that will damage their income. Back over to you, Muskan.
Can I please add to this? And it's a really good question, Anukulji. And Art of Living, IHV's sister organization, has does incredible work in regenerating wetlands and rivers. They have restored over 80 dry rivers, and this has been in collaboration with the state governments, and they have been awarded for it in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and all of the Deccan. But also, there is a lot of regenerative agriculture, like Charles has been speaking about agroforestry and all across India and Mexico. And as per policy, there is also peatland protection and restoration within Indonesia and the UK, and also mangrove restoration, like Charles mentioned earlier. So all of these NDCs that we're talking about nationally, the commitments are also the nature-based solutions, and including land and forest and people is part of it, is very well integrated into it, because it's impossible to achieve without it. The case is how aggressively or ambitiously we are doing it, how much of it is inclusive, and how much funding is enabling it or not enabling it. So though is the quality of implementation and enablement that is constantly being negotiated or renegotiated, but it's definitely not without policy, and it's definitely not without the land and the natural resources.
So, Anukul, you've created a lot of discussion here. What are your own thoughts? What are the actions that you yourself like and would like to be part of in all of this?
There are two things that I really want to look into. First of all, um, I look forward to making changes in our attitude towards this people called the farmers. I have seen traditional farmers from India, and these people, they knew everything about farming. They knew what type of crops can be grown, when they can be grown, what type of birds come in and when is going to rain going to come. And very often, what happens is after the various universities and colleges open, we have graduates and postgraduates from the universities who may not be as competent when it comes to real farmers, when it comes to true farming. So, in other words, we have, with the knowledge based system that we have acquired, the university based education, we do not necessarily qualify as a very good farmer by ourselves. So there is an element of arrogance which builds up. At the same time, there's people who are very open to learning from the farmers. So I think farmers should not be considered to be what I should say unskilled laborers, the way many of the governments take them to be. They have not been given any particular frank good positions, and they therefore do not have any earnings, whether that be in the form of pensions, whether that be in any other kind of way. So I think the current government in India is trying to help them out in various ways to see that they have certain position in the society. But I remember that we had a huge amount of land with us. But ultimately, my father, who was previously in the Air Force, and when he came back to doing this, he said it is impossible to survive as a farmer. And he ultimately had to give it all off to other people. And it is now there are buildings and structures made over there. That is one. My father did not know anything about farming, but the farmers were so very helpful in teaching them. Number two is the concept of giving back to the earth. I mean, we used to have cattle and cows and other things walking about in the field. They used to organically give back to the earth, and the amount of organic material and nitrogen was to be very high. But then came the concept of trying to put in fertilizers and other kind of things, which have actually destroyed the microbiome and other kind of microbes from the earth. So that has resulted in reduced nitrogen intake, and therefore you do not get a very good quality of food that you might get from here. Thirdly, I've seen is I remember the time when we were reading about the something called the Chipko movement. I do not know if you know that. That's the time when the ladies went around holding onto the trees and grabbing them so that the people who were logging the trees would not be allowed to come and cut the trees with their sharp machines to cut down the trees very quickly. But these forest workers would be growing things within the forest. The majority of people in the forest areas would just live off the forest. So we have to change our attitude and not to have this completely industrialized. At the same time, I also note that, say, for example, we have our porridge, we take this thing, the crisps, and they come in boxes. They look very beautiful, but the quantity of food in each of the boxes is very, very small. At the same time, you spend a huge amount of money in trying to package these and give them off. So I'm not very sure there's a difference between what is actually being provided and what type of nutrition it supplies to the people. So there are quite a few changes that we have to make in our own lifestyle. And I'm actually more working towards my personal lifestyle rather than anything else directly
Yeah,
in that
wow.
area.
Super points here, and Nicole, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions and thank you for your comments. So, oh my goodness, we're at the end of time now. So, Muskan, would you like to wrap up, and then we'll ask Gary to run.
Well, I'd love to hear everyone's
Oh.
voice. If nobody doesn't mind running over what they've learned from today. Muskan, wow. Incredible. I'd love to hear from everybody. Charles, do you mind being in the chair and just giving everyone just 60 seconds of what they've learnt today and what their feelings are, and then we'll end on Muskan and that last video and yourself. Is it all right?
Great.
I'd love to hear everyone's voice, if that's okay.
Okay, let's start with Martin and then Shailen. Martin, over to you.
Well, I've learned Muskan's enthusiasm and also sort of expertise and ability to bring stuff together and to walk around and talk and answer questions. I think bodes very well, Muskan. Thank you very much for that. And there's one little fact I thought was rather interesting was just the one where people in Brazil haven't been to the north of Brazil, so coming up there and feeling how hot it is as being a good experience for them. I like that very much.
Amazing. Thank you. Shailen?
I really like how the choice of location brings the country and the world together, and how it mobilizes opinion and movement and protest and voice and everything. It stirs the pot in a particular direction, and that I've seen across every COP, the previous ones I've been to. There is always a talk of people saying, why did they choose this country? Why did they choose the UAE? Because they are the biggest polluters. It's good to hit below the belt. It's good to go and make a noise where it's needed. And then I feel energized with Muskan's presentation, knowledge, and the fact that we're hearing live. Great. And thanks. Really appreciate everyone's efforts gone into it. We would really like more opportunities to present, what our solutions and programs are for tree planting and for fighting climate change, for encouraging volunteering, and also for companies to come in and chip in and say, look, here's our contribution. We want to become partners in the program and the solutions that our organization offers.
Super. Thank you.
Great.
Gary, over to you, Gary.
Yeah, I feel energized as well. I think, Muskan, you are just an incredible human being. I'm lucky to be amongst you all, actually. And Charles, would you believe we've been doing this since 2019? Thousands of people have seen things that maybe they wouldn't. And I'd like you to know quite possibly the ripple effect that everyone's having, that this might fall on ears that hadn't heard about this before. So I encourage everyone watching this, please share it with your friends, be an advocate for the world. And I hand back to you, Charles.
Well, before I speak, over to Muskan. Muskan, you can have more than a minute. What have you got to say in conclusion?
So in conclusion, I would just like to say that I feel like I've spoken a lot, and just like everyone at COP has spoken a lot. And I think now is the time for implementation. It is still a long way to go. There is still a lot of change, a lot of mindsets that need to be changed. I am so glad that Mr. Goswami, you brought that up. But yeah, mindsets do need to be changed, and there has been a shift. I think this COP has been monumental for at least starting that shift in a change in mindset, a change in the way we see how we can treat climate change. It is no longer about policy. It is no longer about governance. It is no longer about financial markets. It is about the people, and it is about the humanity that we must address. Because at the end of the day, the climate problem is a human rights problem, and it is all our rights, and it's all our futures that is at stake. So I think I personally am very grateful to be here, and I'm so glad that I could bring this to all of you sitting at home. And yeah, I think that's how I would like to end. Thank you.
Muskan, you've done an amazing job. I didn't want to interrupt you because what you were saying was also interesting. So that's why you had the floor and you did an amazing job. What my takeaway is that really, yes, we do need this COP discussion. Before the COP, there was quite a lot of skepticism as to what could be achieved, and I think it's absolutely right. We do need this discussion, and from what I hear, there are things that are moving forward. Myself, I really hope that we can do something with this coalition of the willing. I think from what I read, the coalition of the willing is more than 80 of the 195 countries because some of those are some of the bigger, more important countries. Um, so hopefully something can be achieved. We cannot go forward where we have a situation continuously where some of the countries that Al Gore described as the bad boys, Russia and Saudi Arabia, keep blocking what the rest of the world wants to do. So it's been clear to me for several years that we should be going with the coalition of the willing. Who basically have a community who do deals amongst themselves. And if people don't want to be part of that, that's okay, that's fair enough. But then there again, they do not benefit from the advantages and they have carbon tax walls against them instead. Okay. So there's been a focus here on the what's possible with reducing CO2 emissions and the big possibilities we've discussed here through nature-based solutions. But what you said just at the end there, Muskan, I think is so important. It's about energizing all. And instead of disregarding people and saying, "Oh, well, the world's all about tech and AI," it's not. It's also about people growing the oranges and lemons, doing what they can with the climate, the difficult situations, growing crops in a difficult situation, and those are all part of the world. And finally, we have this point: the world, it is our world. It's all our world, whether we're the president of a country or whether we're someone who's doing a bit of subsistence farming. It's all part of that. And just on the final note to say, at Fly Greener, it does what it says. It's about everybody, giving everybody the opportunity to fly greener. It's a great deal. It enables people who are currently in extreme poverty to get out of extreme poverty. And that for me is so critically important. And it removes a load of CO2. Every tree that's planted, and we hope to plant thousands and tens of thousands and millions of trees, every tree makes a difference. So anybody you know who's wondering what to do, not quite sure, do please point them to Fly Greener and hopefully they can plant more trees. So thank you to everybody here, and particularly to our amazing presenter, Muskan. Hooray!
Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really good.
Thank you, everybody. Gary, you're going to
Charles.
the video.
If you are watching this live on Facebook, you won't be able to see this video. You'll only be able to hear it. And all the presenters this evening, you won't be able to see it, but you will only be able to hear it. So if the tech works, Muskan, again, thank you. You are such central part of your view of that, of COP30. Thank you. So
okay,
here we go.
Just before you run the video, let me introduce Rob on the video.
Okay.
So just to introduce the video to everybody, we've talked about nature-based solutions. Rob is one of the world's leading proponents of the value of water, the water cycle. So the research that he and his colleagues have done are saying that there are parts of the world where by planting more trees, it can actually increase the amount of water vapor in the air. And so as well as northeast Brazil, the other areas are the Horn of Africa. There's an area in India, between India and China, and even in southwest England, by planting more trees, this can increase rainfall. And this is so critically important. It's about planting trees, but it's about planting, what Rob is saying is to plant trees in the right place, and those trees will create more water vapor in the air. And this is why the temperature in the Amazon, the temperature on the ground is only 25 degrees, which is pretty comfortable. And it's not the crazy temperatures of 30, 40 degrees that we're seeing elsewhere in the world. Over to Rob.
Oh, here we go. Can everyone see him?
Sure.
Hello everybody. A small report from me from the Blue Zone here at COP30 in Belém, Brazil. I'm just going to first give you an impression of the anthill that I am in. There are about 40,000 people on this COP, including, by the way, 44,000 indigenous people. They really have a big presence. I can't see them right now, but there are beautifully dressed up people from all kinds of peoples. It's just wonderful. I just finished a meeting with the head of the Brazilian National Development Bank, and they have a project of billions for the Amazon. As usual, the red tape will not give us the possibility to immediately interact with them. It's probably a 2-year trajectory, so I'm focusing on private parties to get things done. What I'm launching here are basically 3 things. First, our book Cooling the Climate, in which we show that there is another way out of the climate crisis that doesn't focus solely on carbon. It's actually the atmospheric water cycle of the Amazon that does most of the cooling. And basically, you could see the Amazon as the largest cooling organ, or if you like, air conditioner in the world. And that's why we can't lose it. If we would lose it, it is at the tipping point of dieback. The additional extra warming up, it will be about 2 degrees centigrade worldwide. So we have to do everything to save it. And that's why I got a team together to build the Arara platform, a platform that is basically structured to pay everybody and reward everybody in the Amazon to save and restore the Amazon, because there's so much illegal activity going on, because there is lack of economy. And if we can put money into the hands of people to restore it, then that is the way to go. I can't, there's no time to explain this to you technically, but I'm happy to give the information via Saving Our Planet as a way to do it. Anyway, later I'm going to visit a new fund, especially for the Amazon, which focuses on the Sacred Headwater Alliance. And I can already announce that we have a partnership for a project in Colombia with Gaia Amazonas, and I'm very happy to start there as well. Thank you very much, and I hope to report more, but this is my last day here, so then it will be from another location.
There you go.
Okay, so Gary, big thank you to you for leading us through this with all the tech, and Muskan's got some more great pictures coming through here. But I think it's time to go. Big thank you to everybody. Thank you, everybody, particularly to Muskan. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Amazing.
Good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Be careful, Muskan. Oh, she's gone. All right, good night, everyone.